Hello, I'm Bonnie Hagemann, the CEO of EDA, and I wanted to give you a little demo of CultureVue, our AI culture intelligence platform that we built for CEOs, their senior teams, for the board of directors, and you can certainly share it with other leaders down throughout the organization, but we originally built it for the top of the house because we believe culture starts at the top. And we also worked with CEOs to make sure we were measuring the things that they cared about. So in 2012, we started building technology. And at first, we built a culture survey called Culture 2020. And we did that with CEOs because we wanted to make sure that we were measuring the things that they wanted their fingertips on. We found that they often felt that HR didn't have a full grasp of the business. And so we wanted to start with them to get that good face value right up front. I came from CPP, the publisher of the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, the California Psychological Inventory, the FIRO-B, etc. So I have this assessment background. So we built our own Culture 2020 survey to put into our platform. And we have a culture survey platform as well as a 360-degree survey platform. So you'll see us enter through that. And then we'll get to the culture dashboard. We took our Culture 2020 survey, and in 2020, we hired a PhD data scientist, large language model expert who had been working with the Pentagon on a defense contract. And we asked if we could get culture in real time using these same categories. And so we worked on that. We trained our AI line by line, and we wanted to be able to do it with chat and email. We can certainly add listening bots and things like that later. You could add keystroke if you wanted to, but we're trying to make sure that we're capturing positive, not spying on employees. And so this is where the angle that we came from. We also completely protect the employees' data. So it is absolutely impossible to get to an individual, unlike with a culture survey where you could actually find out who said what. You cannot do that with our technology. The other thing is you can't get into a department below 5 people. So if you'll see a stop come up if you try to do that, but you can still find out what's going on in your organization, and you can drill down to the team level. You can find out, what your Asian American population in Dallas in a specific division, what they think. And we also have found that it is very accurate. It is also predictive, which I will show you that. So let me switch and show you the screen and I'll walk you through it. And I will start with our survey platform. So this is designed to kick out SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics. We made a survey platform that is heavy HR leadership development oriented. We have all enterprise surveys, so like any basic survey. We have a 360-degree survey customizable platform, and we have our Culture 2020 as well as a return on investment assessment. And we will enter into the culture dashboard through here. This is CultureVue. What we have here is a dashboard. I will say that it is not based on norms at this time. And the reason is I was being a purist, and the truth is you cannot norm culture. We are able to get some comparison information after the fact. We could always add norms. People like that. But as you know, if you deal with a lot of assessments, that you cannot actually norm culture. So instead, we norm them against themselves. So what you have here is, think of the 50 as the average culture for this company. And we are looking at one of our early betas. This was a hospital, 500 employee rehab hospital. They worked more with email than chat, so we'll focus on that. We're comparing them to themselves over the last 2 years. And obviously it's showing in real time, but we also can see over the last 2 years. And that's how we populate the dashboard right up front, is we go back and ingest their data for the last 2 years. I will also say that we are SOC 2 compliant, and we do not hold the employee data at this time. If we're looking at, you can see it's at 79%, and we're looking at a 60-day moving average. So in the 60-day moving average, comparing this 60 days to the last 60 days, we are at 79%. And if I come over here and click on this, you will see the actual norm. So 68% of the sentiment is falling in this gray box. And you can see that in that comparison window, it has really been neutral. So if we click one more time here, you will see there is an AI push-up based on the numbers only. So these are stats oriented, not comment oriented. Topic analysis is our next step in this, where we would actually be going through those comments and coming up with summaries, etc. But right now you can do some of that by looking at Ask AI. This is ChatGPT 5. You can ask it anything that you would normally ask ChatGPT, but only based on your data. It doesn't go out to the ether. So you could ask it during the 60-day window in my email, what should I be focusing on right now? And it would give you an AI summary of that. You could change the time frame. You can also change it to look at your chat data. So that is what we have here. You can see here that you can change the window, and you can see here the 12 culture areas that are being measured. You can also see those scrolling across here. That was designed for the board of directors to have on their board portal. We believe that eventually, at least public companies will be required to report on culture, and we wanted to be ready for that for the board portals. So that is why you see the scrolling here. The other piece is we asked CEOs what would work for you to get up to the board. You may know that many CEOs prefer not to get culture up to the board because they don't want to get fired. However, since it's going to be required most likely for public companies, we wanted to do something, and we asked what they could live with, and they came up with a ticker tape idea. So that's where that came from. You can see here your plus or minus 1 standard deviation from the norm. That's the difference in the lines. So again, 68% of the population is coming through here. I can show you the volatility. So I can show you when you are piercing the norm. If you have a green arrow, you have pierced the norm in a positive manner. If you have a red arrow, you have pierced it in a negative manner. And you can see that often it will continue to go down if something isn't done. So when we did the debrief for this particular company, we came in here in February of 24. And we ingested their last 2 years, and we then met with them to put some timelines in. So you can add timelines here, events that have happened, and you can figure out, what was going on in the organization that would have caused things to go up and down. In other words, what triggers your culture to change? We call it a tone change in the organization. Here you can see we went back to June 2023, and we asked them, what happened back in June 2023 that caused this to start going down, and they did not know. And so we were able to do a quick look at the different sentiment, what was happening at that time, and we were able to eventually zero it down to 3 areas. You can see that teamwork was one of the areas that went down about the same as their overall sentiment. Then we came back again. We came in 24. We said, what happened back here before we started going down? They had a new president, and if this was his first time to ever be a president, he was also on the call when we were doing the debrief. So we said, okay, you came in December 23, things slowed down, we come back after Christmas, and sentiment tanks. We asked, do you know what caused this to go down? They did not know. So again, we started going through, trying to figure out, what was it that happened? We did all of this on a 1-hour phone call, and we were able to find that vision and strategy was the biggest drop. And what he said was that he had come in, and because he had a strategy session planned for June, he did not want to go out with a new strategy until then. However, they were a privately owned hospital, and what happened was the employees thought they were for sale. So sentiment just started going down. Once they saw this, since we weren't going to work with them on strategy until later in the year, they just began to share the vision and strategy that they had already, and that turned it around, but not before they had a turnover event. So back here, they had a turnover event, and there was teamwork and other things were the cause, which we were able to tell them. They were not able to tell us. Here, they had turnover, and it was because he did not come out talking about vision and strategy. But they were able to turn it around just by communicating vision and strategy until we were able to get in there and redo their strategy. So it just shows you that in each of these cases, had they had this dashboard, they would have had a 2-month warning before people began to resign. Now, the other thing I want to show you that we can change the time. So we could look at this year, the whole year versus last year. And you can see that was neutral movement if you look at the whole year. There's the 60-day window, also neutral movement. If we go to 30 days, though, they had a downturn. They had an uptick that that things were going positive, and at 7 days they had a downturn. And so at 7 days, it's not a problem. You've had a bad week. It's sort of like stormy weather in a summer. However, if that continues into 30 days, it certainly is time to start digging in and seeing what's going on. So this is what you can see right up front. And then if we scroll down a little bit, I'm going to show you this by pie chart, but I want to switch to when we had a company with demographics. Now I've switched to another company. This is after we had installed demographic drill down capability. And this is a 700 employee organization in the Midwest that is a services organization. So we were able to now have genders, ethnicities, departments. You could have other drill down capabilities. And what I really want to show you here is this pie chart. So I just want to show you the power of the demographics, because if we focus on immediate supervision and senior leadership only, you can see where it is for the employees as a whole: low, immediate supervision, medium, senior leadership. But if we switch and we look at gender only, we're going to start with males, because they were 2/3 female, 1/3 male. And you can see that the men were pretty happy with the immediate supervision. They were less happy with senior leadership. But if we switch to female only, you will see that 3/4 of their population is very unhappy with immediate supervision. So this was a huge red flag. We immediately reached out to the CEO, said, we think you should get involved right away on this, because if you have 3/4 of your workforce who's unhappy with their immediate supervisor, that is a very likely turnover event. And so we encourage them to get in there immediately, start doing mid-level manager development to help the managers to be able to relate better to both genders, do some focus groups, find out exactly what's going on, etc. So I wanted to show you that the power of the demographics is extremely helpful. And this, when we do quarterly debriefs with the clients, we do that just so they have a culture thought partner. They can use this dashboard all the time without us, but we like to get in there and work with our clients and be their culture partner. So we are hoping that that continues. The end user always feels like they have a customer partner and experts to help them, because a lot of them really don't know what to do with their culture. So we try to help with that. And then if you want to see behind the scenes, you can see that we are able to show you exactly how many impressions in every area in the 60-day, 30-day, or 365-day window. Obviously, the number of impressions changes. So for example, you don't have to say, they are not communicating with me in your emails or chats for this to catch it. We did the peripherals. So you could say, I sent an email and they have not yet responded, and that would give you a downtick in communications, and that would be one of these 146,000 impressions that you would see in communication. Now, where you see signal strength, that's an algorithm that tells us whether or not we're sure that we have captured this appropriately. So under communication, if it is not at 75%, it will not reach your dashboard. We do not include it. So we have to be sure before we put it up on the dashboard. We consider this sort of static, less clear, but anything 75% and above, we are sure about. And then these are your top 5 mentions. You can see here engagement is one of the top 5, and it's fairly red. So an area to dig into there on the overall. So these are AI push-ups of the categories, the larger categories: growth, leadership, employees, and vision. And you can see that. Now, I will also share with you that we do debriefs and samples of the follow-up documents that we send to clients after we do a debrief, so that you can see that. And this is all based on our Culture 2020 survey that we had built back in 2020. And you can see we have like a sample report of that survey. So if you happen to have a client that also has to have a survey, we can do that. Let's say there's a city where they have a lot of trash workers or people who never touch a computer. You can do an apples to apples culture survey. This is a report for our actual culture survey that we base this off of, the AI off of. So there you go. I wanted to give you a demo, and I'll be glad to share more and discuss. Thank you for taking time to review.